Okay, welcome back to the second part of this tutorial. Now guys, let's start work on the database. Okay, you guys are going to need this. You're going to need the SQLite browser. I will include all of this on my description area of this video. And you will also need the SQL driver as well. This is the browser, this is the driver. Now let me show you guys how the browser looks like. Close that. I'm going to minimize this. This is the browser, but let me show it to you. Once it's installed, that's how it looks like. Now let's create our database. Click on new right here. Okay, once you double click on this, just want to show you how that's going to look like. That's how it looks like. I'm going to click on new database. It's very simple to use. So enter the name of your database there. I'm going to call it hotel database, and I'm going to save it right inside where my project is. Where is NetBeans? There we go. Double click on that, and right here have hotel database. There we go. So I'm going to save it right in there. Now the name of the table, I'm just going to call the table as hotel database as well. That's okay. There we go. Now let's click on add field. The very first field is going to be known as customer reference, and customer reference, the data type, I'm going to make that text. And right here we have the primary key, and here if you click on this one, that means text, not nil. That means you must always add text in there. The primary key, I'm going to leave that out, no problem. You can add your primary key if you want. Now the next one is going to be first name. First name, the data type is going to be text as well, followed by surname, text. I'm going to enter the address, and it's going to be text. So I'm going to speed this up. Alright guys, my database is completed, and those are the fields. So let's try and show it to you guys. There we go guys, those are the fields. Okay, there we go. Now I have the fields in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on OK, and if you want to browse, let's assume we have any data in there. That's how we browse it. Just click on browse. This is the structure. You can always delete if you want, or print if you want, or modify. There. It's a very reliable system to use. Okay, I'm going to close this now that I've finished with this. We'll minimize it. We can always come back to it once we are done. Now database is created. Let's go straight to we need to connect that very database now. So what we need to do is go straight to the services right here. Okay, the services will go straight to the database. If I minimize that, what I want to do now is I'm going to add a driver. You see, that's driver. Let's do that first. But before I go any further, let me do one more thing. So what I want to do now is to add the driver straight inside my project. Let's open it. Those are the drivers, various drivers that I normally use, and here that's my project. Okay, that's the database that I've just created, and now I need the driver that I copied earlier on. Double click on Java files, and that's the driver. Click, drag, and just drop it in there, or just copy it instead of clicking and dragging. Copy, because I might need it again. There we go. And I have the driver right inside my project directory, so I can now close this. I don't need that anymore. And I can even close this. Let's close this as well. There we go. And just for your information, if you need those drivers, that is the link to the driver, which I'm going to include in my description area. Okay, and this is the driver that I'm using. This is the latest for now. Now, as for the browser, this is the browser, SQL browser. I will also include this link on the description area right here. Where is it? This is it, 64-bit. That's the one I'm using. Okay, so you guys, we have this link as well to play around with, and here those are the URL. That's the URL for that, and that's the URL for the driver. So those will be included for you guys. So minimize that, and I can even close this. I don't need it anymore. Close all the tabs. Right, now let's come right in here. Okay, go to services, click on services. Let's right click on the driver, new driver. Okay, but before then, let's drop this down and see. Click on the plus sign. Let's click new driver. I already have some drivers in there. I'm going to click on add. Take note of these two drivers that I have in there. Okay, I'm going to add a new driver just for the sake of this tutorial. Let's go to where I have my driver. I have it right in here. There we go. Right click there. That's my new driver. Look at it as SQLite 2. Okay, because I already have SQLite 2. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm showing you guys how it's done. Okay, that's SQLite 2. I'm going to click on OK. So I'm going to be using this throughout this tutorial. There we go. And that is SQLite 2. Okay, that's my driver in there. The next thing I want to do is to connect to a database. So to do that, go to database up here, right click on it. But take note of these two connectors here. You can see their link is broken. So now I need to connect a new database. This new database, I'm going to have to add a driver to it. Okay, add, or drop this down. Let's drop this down. We want to select SQLite 2. Look at it. That's the one I'm using. I'm not using any of this. For this tutorial, I'm using SQLite 2. Click on that. Now, I'm going to click on next because I already have my driver. It's already found it. That is it right there. So I don't need to add any more drivers. Okay, I don't need to add that because I already have it. Now, click on next. The next thing now is in here, make sure it's SQLite 2, or if you're using SQLite. Okay, name, I'm not going to give it any name, and I will not give it any password. But I do need the location of my database. I will now go to my database right here. That is my database. Click, hold on to your shift key, right click, and select copy path. Look at it right there, copy path. Okay, or if you want to, you can use another method to copy the path. You can always click up here and just copy address, but I prefer to use copy path because you will end up typing this. So if I copy this, let me show you the difference. I'm going to copy this, and let's come right in here. You see where we have less than 5 and greater than. I'll paste that in there, but the problem is the name of my database is not included. I'm going to undo that, or just delete that there. But if I use this method, select, hold on to shift key, right click, and select copy path, minimize that, paste, as you can see, I have my database directory, everything in there. Apart from this quotation mark, just delete that and come here, delete the other one there. I feel this method is more reliable. Click on next. Now before I click on next, let's test the connection. Click on test. There we go. Connection succeeded. Okay, I'm officially connected to my database now. You can click on next if you want, but there's no need for that. Okay, you can just click on finish because you finish connecting the database anyway. Connection is succeeded, so click on finish. That is done. Now the icon is now showing a database connection right there using this SQL driver number 2 for this particular project. So I'm done with the connection of the database, so that is fine. Okay, I will now go to the source code here, right underneath here, inside the source code, right underneath here. I'm going to import the following libraries. Okay, I will need all of those libraries for my data connection, for printing, for all of the components that I have on my system. Now the next thing I'm going to do is right underneath my public class hotel database, what I'm going to do next is going to be first of all, let me invoke the connection. Connection equals con, and I'm going to set the value to nothing. There. I'm also going to specify my prepared statement. So let's say prepared statement. So I'm going to call that let's say PST, that equals nothing as well. Then I would also go for result. That will be result set. So the purpose of this result set is when a query is performed on the database, a result search object is returned containing the result of the query. So that's the whole purpose of this result search. So I'm just going to call that rs equals nothing for now. Enter semicolon. Now the next thing I'm going to define is going to be a default. So I will call that table, default table mode. So with the default table model, I'm going to create an object here. I will just call it model equals new default table model. There we go. Now let's enter parentheses here. There we go. Okay, the next thing I want to do now is to come straight to this constructor here, or to initialize all of the component that I intend to use for my application. So let's say object, I'm going to call that column, which stands for COL. Okay, that's column, and that's going to be an array, and that is equals to all of the fields in my database. The first one is customer reference. Yep, and I'm going to enter a comma there, and the next one is going to be surname. Right, comma, and I also have first name. I think first name is before surname. That's right. So let's do it right. First name here. Then I have address here. And let's enter comma and just speed that up. There we go. Those are all my fields in place, the fields on my database. So the next thing I want to do now is I'm going to call module, which I have up here somewhere. This very module here. Where is it? Here, that very one. Let's paste that underneath here, and I'll then ask the module itself to set columns. Let's do that again. Dot set I might as well type it out. Set column and column identifier, and the columns is represented by col column there. So that is taken care of. Now the next thing is to add everything straight onto my table. So that is actually j table dot set. Now is j table 1 dot set module, and that will be my object module there we go. Let's see, why is that error? Let's come back in here and see the name. The name is, that is the official name. I did not change it. I'm gonna copy that, go back in and just paste it there. Paste there. That's fine. Okay, let's create a public method here to help with the connection. So I'm gonna call that public static. So right underneath the constructor, public static connection, and this connection I'm just going to call it connect. Get rid of that, copy that and just call it connect db parentheses, and let's enter curly braces there. Okay, now this method I just created, maybe I should use try catch. Let's say try and enter parentheses, curly braces, then I need a catch here. That's just to take care of whatever error that I might run into there. And this one is going to be, let's address it as a exception E. Okay, now inside the try, what I want you to try to do for me is, so I just want you to load the driver to allow connection to the database. So that's what I'm going to do there. So say class dot forename, and the name is org dot sql lite dot jdbc, all in uppercase. JDBC is in uppercase, and I'm just going to end that with semicolon. Now let's say connection, let's see, that should work really, else I'm going to use the Java connection equals equals driver manager dot get connection here, and the connection is going to be think it is going to be inside quotes JDBC column SQLite column hotel database. Okay, the name of my database right here, have it somewhere here, hotel database .db, and let's enter semicolon here. Yeah, okay, if it's wrong there will be an error anyway, so that's fine. And let's just ask it to return there we go. Okay, supposing we have an error, so what do? In that case, I'm going to use a message box here. So let's come right down here. Let's move this in a bit. So I'm going to say J option pin dot. I would like you to show this message box. Message dialog. This is going to be nothing. And just get the message from the system. And I will also ask it to return nothing. There we go. Now all the errors are gone. So this method is set. Let's save that. Right, and right inside the initialize here, I need to get this initialized. So let's come in here. I'm going to call that hotel database. So let's come in right here and say con equals hotel database dot connection db. You see, it's already recognized it. So let's enter that in there. Alright, that is all done with this part of it. Right, now one more thing. Let's come right down here and let me take care of update method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method or a function that will update my database. I'll just call that public void, and that will be update table, enter parentheses there. There we go. And that is going to be this, that is initialize all of these. I'm going to copy that. It's inside my initialize here. Look at it. Okay, and I'll just paste it in here. There. Then the other thing is, let's use an if statement to validate selection made. So I'm going to say if con not equals to nothing. Let's enter that inside quote, inside the curly braces. So we say, let's say string dot SQL equals, that's just a variable SQL. So I'm going to ask it to select customer's reference and all of the following. So let me just copy those. There we go. I'm going to copy every single field there. Come right down here, paste it here, and all I just need to do is to get rid of the quotes, really. So get rid of these here. That's going to be boring, so I'm going to speed that up for you guys. Okay, that's how it's looking now. Okay, you can see I break it into the second line. That's why you have this plus sign there. Alright, you can do the same thing, else there will be an error. So the next thing we want to do now is I'm going to use try cache again. Try cache. So let's put a cache underneath here. Or we can just copy our try cache in here. This cache. Just copy it and paste it right underneath here. Now, in here, what do I want? So let's get rid of this for now. Now, right in here, I'm going to say the prepare statement equals con dot prepare statement, and that is going to be the SQL variable here. Okay, then the other one is going to be result set equals, let's get the prepared statement itself executed, dot execute the query. And this query that we executed, okay, that's fine. Let's change this to lowercase here. All right, so right underneath here, I'm going to call this object. I'm just creating an object that I will call column data. This object column data itself equals a new object, and that is where I will store all my fields and how many in total. So let's create an array. So it's going to be 15 in total. Okay, so I've just created an object called column. This column has 50, we hold 15 records, or sorry, 15 fields. So I'm going to copy that and come right down here using while result dot is next. Close that, open a curly braces there. Very first column is going to be class as column 0, and column 0 equals results set dot get string. Where is it? Right there. And what string are we getting? That's going to be customer reference. That's my very first one. There we go. Like I said, I have 15 fields, so I'm just going to copy this and change things around. So the next one, okay, this is going to be first name. I have surname here, address, we have postcode, and this is 0, 1, 2. Array always start from 0, so 3, 4. So I'm going to copy all of this and just speed things up and get back to you guys. And there we go, guys. Now I now need to add the array straight into or onto the table, and the table is represented with the object I call model dot add rows, and the role is, as you can see, column data. There we go, and that's it. So what I'll do is, let's get this indented. Let's come in here and shift right. Yeah, that's fine. Make sure it's saved. Okay, I now also need to initialize my update function, this very one. Just going to copy that and paste it inside the constructor up here. Where is it? Right underneath here. Yeah, there we go. Right, so everything is looking good. For now, there's no error. And we're going to have to, let's see, all of these here, I think they're making reference to, okay, that's okay. There's no error yet anyway, because I haven't used most of the components yet, most of the libraries that I copied. Alright, so let's run it and you guys see what I'm talking about. Nothing is going to happen right now because I need, yeah, that's fine, there's no error. I'm going to use the, I think maybe the total or the update to save everything straight into my database and also display it here. So with that, guys, I'm going to call it the end of the second part of this tutorial. See you guys shortly.